So you got your model imported with all your dynamic bones and it's already good to be uploaded, but you wanted to learn how to do custom toggles, whether it be material swaps or toggling on and off clothing or parts of your avatar. So first things first, we're going to go into the VRChat SDK. We're going to go to examples 3, going to go to animation, we'll go to controllers. You notice there's a bunch of different controllers here. If you're doing custom idles, which I'll be doing in a future video, you'll want to do locomotion. Otherwise, if you're doing just your FX layer, you can go ahead and go to the, where is it? Hands layer. You can just duplicate that, and you can drag and drop it into pretty much wherever you want on your model, as long as it's in your assets in your project. And I usually recommend renaming it to something like, I don't know, FX layer, if it will let me rename. Jeez. There we go. And we will want to drag this onto our model, so I'm just going to drag this into the bottom here where it says playable layers and then FX. So we're just going to drag that into there. Cool. Again, I'm not doing this in a clean scene, so there's already a bunch of things already done. Whatever, doesn't really matter. We will also need menus and parameters, so we will have to go into the X menu parts, or no? Blend trees? Nope. I will find it. Give me a second. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why I paused. I didn't need to pause. Just examples, expressions menu. There it is, right there. So I usually recommend duplicating both. If you're wondering how I'm duplicating, you can either right-click and hit duplicate. Oh, there is no right-click duplicate anymore. Oh, I'm just hitting Control D on my keyboard to duplicate. Then we can drag and drop this back into our model as well. Go here, and we're going to rename these. So this one we'll rename to parameters. If my mind wouldn't hit a blank when I'm in the middle of recording, geez. And then I usually rename the other one to top menu, just so I know which menu it is. And you can also create sub-menus, so it's always easiest just to have that one as your top. Again, we're going to click on our model, we're going to scroll down in the inspector. We're going to drag top menu into our menu and our parameters into our parameters. I do recommend going into parameters and clearing them. The whole VRC emote, that's only needed if you're doing custom dances and stuff. Again, we'll cover that in a future bit. Face hand blend and the H and V, you don't actually need those. If they're not included in your parameters, they're automatically going to be enabled by default. So we can just clear those. That should be fine. Our top menu, as you can see, will be empty. And our effects layer, if we go to the Animator tab at the top, if you don't see Animator there, you can click on Window. Then you can click on Animation and then Animator down here. And then that should actually open it up. And I usually like to dock it at the top there. You notice we'll have our left hand and our right hand. I don't know why they haven't been different positions, whatever. So these actually control our facial expressions. So our default facial expressions. These don't actually control hand movement anymore. Everything used to be all together in SDK2. I don't know why I'm mentioning that. It's probably just confusing you guys. But once you have your effects layer in there and you want to create a toggle, it's highly recommended to create a duplicate of your model. But you don't really have to anymore. The 2019 Unity is usually pretty good. You can usually just drag your effects layer into your controller slot and your animator up here. And then you can go over to animation. And if you don't have animation, you can just hit Control F6, or you can go to Window, Animation, or sorry, Control 6, not Control F6, my bad. And you can just hit Animation up here, and that will bring up the window. Then we're going to click on the little drop-down menu here. We're going to hit Create New Clip. And we are going to save it to the top of the hierarchy. And I'll name this, I don't know, Toggle Ears. Right? I'm going to show you guys two different ways of creating toggles for basic animations and such. But we're going to hit the 3 dots up here. We're going to lock it. We're going to hit the record option. And as you notice, it will break our animations temporarily. That is fine. It doesn't have any walking animations in this FX layer, so it doesn't know what to do, which is fine. So we're just going to click on the ears, go to the top right in the inspector. We're just going to toggle it off and back on. Whichever you want to the default, we can decide that later. It's just as long as we know where we're toggling to begin with. Then we're going to go out of record mode and we can unlock. It's recommended to lock it because if you ever click on things you want to toggle that aren't particularly part of your model or its prefab, say if you, I don't know, imported a plushie or something and it has its own animator, right? That plushie will actually change what you're trying to toggle. So if you lock the animation tab, it will be fine and won't have any issues there. You don't have to, it's just recommended if you have any issues in the future. But yeah, now that we've created the animation, I'll show you two different ways of setting up that animation. So if we go into our parameters here, I'm just going to create a new bool since it's going to be on or off. I'm just going to name it, I don't know, ears. Doesn't really matter. We're going to go over to the layers tab. I'm going to hit the little plus. I'm going to type it ear toggle. Again, doesn't really matter what you name it. This is just so you know what it is later down the road. You want to set the weight to 1. This just makes sure that it is forced and not just layered on top of. So you always want to set weight to 1, otherwise it just will fail occasionally, or just will get completely override in priority. I think, I don't know. But yeah, then we're going to put our toggle ears animation in there. And the first way I'm going to show you is if we put 2 in here, and we take the first one, remove the motion section from it by just scrolling to the top and hitting none. So it should say motion, none motion. We could rename this to default, right? Then we have our toggles ear here. And then we want to set this to, I don't know, ears off, right? Then we want to take our little default, we want to make a transition to ears off, then make another transition to exit. And then this is where we click on our actual transition we created. And I usually like to toggle off has exit time and fixed duration. That just makes sure that the animation is instant for the toggle and doesn't take its time. Otherwise, if you want to add like a diffuse or dissolve animation in between, you can obviously tinker with the animation duration there. And in our conditions, this just tells Unity what we want to toggle it with. So we're going to scroll down to our ears parameter. I'm going to make sure if it's set to true that it turns the ears off. Then we're going to go to the transition going in the other direction to exit. I'm going to add a condition, and we're going to go to ears and make sure this is set to false. So if it's on, it will play this animation. If it's not, it will leave. Basically, it just sets it back to default. This is a very, I don't know, lazy way of doing it, but it does work, which is really nice. Otherwise, if we go down to our toggle ears animation in our project asset settings, we can either take the animation, make it 1 frame, or we can hit Control C, go over to the next frame, and hit Control V. This will just make sure it loops only once and doesn't just play infinitely. You don't have to do this. It's only required in, I don't know, certain cases. Otherwise, for the other animations way we can do it, we can actually duplicate that animation, and we can just change the name to toggles ear off. Go into the animation, and we want to make sure we have the values here opposite, right? There we go. And I do realize that I actually had these backwards. So I'm actually going to change this to, yeah, whatever. I'll let you guys figure it out what I did wrong. No, I'm just kidding. If you notice in the ears off or toggle ears on that I just renamed it to, God, I just made it so confusing. I had the value set to on by default. That's not right. We want to have these set to 0, right? For the ears off one. But yeah, that's because I done goofed. Whatever. It is what it is. We're all human. We all make mistakes. So I'm going to make sure that the motion set for default is ears on, and the ears off one is obviously going to be animation of ears off. We're actually going to remove the transition to exit, and we're going to make a transition back to default. And we're going to do the same thing it was before, same one as exit, so remove exit time, fixed duration, condition will be set to ears, set to false. So this is another way of creating animations. You just have 2 animations for the same thing. Technically less optimized, but also less likely to break, but it's up to you which one you want to do. You can do either or, both work. I find this one works great with right defaults on. I find the other one works both, so it's just more versatile, but this one just breaks a little bit less, so it's completely up to you which one you want to use. But yeah, now that you know how to create animations, now let's show you how to toggle them in game. So now if we go to our top menu here, go to our parameters, right? So we have parameters in our animator, and then we have parameters that's actually on our model. We can add a parameter, make sure it's set to the same as when we created. So we created a bool, so we're just going to create a bool, and we're going to name it ears, right? And the whole saved and default setting, save says, oh, if you switch out the model or switch worlds, will it remember what setting you had enabled last? We do want that to be remembered. The default is just a lazy way of saying, oh, do we want it to be on or off by default? Obviously, we could just go into our animation here, into our layer, and change which animation is active, or we can just go into the animation itself and change it. This is the recommended way. I wouldn't recommend going to your parameters and doing it the lazy way, mainly because if anyone has your animations disabled, they will not see the same toggles on that you have on. So yeah, it'll be mix match. So like if you have a wand in your hand and you change the default up here in your parameters rather than in your actual animations, then you're just going to be running around with a wand even if it's not actually in your hand, which can be a little obnoxious, especially if you have things on by default like music and such. It's very, very annoying. Oh god, we're already at 12 minutes, and I still got so much more to cover. Jeez. Okay, so now you know how to toggle objects on and off. Now let's do the whole material swap. So let's say you don't like your hair color on your model, you want to change it, right? You don't like this, whatever color it is, and you want to change it, I don't know, to like a white or something, right? Well, if we go to here, we can actually find which texture it's using. So we can grab that texture by right-clicking and hitting Show in Explore. We can go to our browser. I like to use Pixlr. You can use Photoshop, whichever you like. And I like to just drag and drop it in there. And I like to just adjust it. So I just go to color. I'll just change the hue. I don't know, we'll make it like... I'll make it like a nice purple. Save, export. Change the name to like, I don't know, hair 5, doesn't matter. Cool. Now that we have that in our downloads, perfect. We can go over to our model. We can now drag that into our assets. And we can also find the material here. If you're wondering how I found it, I just clicked on the part of the body I wanted the material for, so I could just grab the hair. Then where it says materials in your inspector tab, you could just click on that and it will highlight it in your assets, right? So now we can just click on that, Control D to duplicate. We'll just drag this in here, right? And then we can just change the settings on it. So I'm just going to take the new hair, put that in there, and then we could just drag it onto whatever parts we want on the model. There we go. So now that's how we changed our hair color and stuff, but you know what? We want to have that on a toggle. We want to be able to go back and forth, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our material, right, that we want to go to. I'm just going to duplicate because I don't want to mess with the original ones, even though it doesn't really matter, realistically. Name that a different name. That's why it's not letting me drag it. There we go. Cool. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our animation tab. We're going to click on our model. We're going to go down here. We're going to create new clip. We'll name it hair color. Cool. Then we can go ahead and lock it again. We can hit record. And this part is very simple. While it's in record mode, you just drag whichever different colors you want wherever you want them. So you'll have to drag this on everything that you want a different color. And if it's not letting you select it, you can always just click on it and then go over to where it says materials and element. You can just drag and drop it there and that'll be fine. And as you can see, I went back to the regular ones, and if we go back to our animation tab, they'll all be added there. Then we can leave record mode, go to the top right, hit unlock, go back to our model here, and if you notice it's still broken in the animation. Again, the two ways of fixing this is either to be modifying it on a duplicate, or you could just go to the controller where it says FX layer and just hit none. Because the whole reason it was doing that is because if you noticed, Animator was turned off. So you can either turn it back on, or you could just set this to none, and that will fix it. Cool. So now that we have that toggle set up, we can now go into our Animator. We can create a new bool, because again, it's going to be on or off. We can name it, I don't know, hair color, doesn't really matter. Go to layers, create a new layer, set the weight back to full, and we'll find our hair color. I'm going to drag two of them in there. Cool. Transition, transition. Cool. And then I'm going to name this hair blue. And I'm going to name this defaults. And then I'm going to remove the motion field from it again by setting it to none. Go into the transition, remove exit time and duration, go into conditions, go to hair color, make sure that's set to true, do the same thing for this transition, and go to the bottom, set hair color to false. And now we have an animation that will change our hair from this purple to the blue. Obviously, if you want the other way around, all you'd have to do is find your animation here. And if you expand these, you'll notice it actually gives you an option here for changing it. And if we go ahead and put our FX layer back in our Animator section, by going to a project and dragging and dropping it back into there, you'll notice that when we go into the animation, it actually allows us to modify it. So I'm going to drag this to the top right for the purpose of this part. And you should be able to just drag and drop these onto these parts here. Right? Cool. We want to zoom in there just so we make sure it's only doing one frame. Good. Okay. Scene, and then obviously want the hair color to be the opposite. So we're just going to drag and drop those onto everything we need. There we go. And now our hair color will be the opposite of what it was. Again, I'm going to remove the FX layer from the Animator section just in case it breaks. But yeah, so now we have a toggle for that. Now we just need to add it to our parameters again. There we go. So we'll just go to parameters. We'll add a new parameter. We'll name it the same thing we named it before. Oh, if I can type properly. Again, it'll be bool. We want it to be saved. Then we can go over to our top menu, because I didn't show this part yet. We have two things to add. First one, this is the actual menu you'll see in game. You can do icons if you want, or you can just type in the name, doesn't matter. So I'll name the first one, I don't know, what was it again that we toggled? Oh yeah, ears off. Make sure it's set to toggle. Make sure the parameter is set to ears. We go to the bottom one. We'll go to hair purple in this case. Set it to toggle, parameter, hair color. And now these are actually set. Obviously, if you want to create your own submenu for these, you could add control, create a submenu, and we can put in, I don't know, toggles into there, right? Then we could just take our menu here, which would be top menu, duplicate it, we'll name it toggles. Cool. Then we can just drag toggles into there. We can open up toggles. Oh, my bad. Drag toggles into there, open up toggles. And we can remove the other things and remove them from here. So now we have a toggles menu that when we open it up, it'll bring up these two options here if you want to organize it that way. Otherwise, I think you guys are pretty much good for animations and creating your own toggles. I know this was a little bit of a longer one. Geez, 20 minutes just to show how to do frickin' toggles. Wow. Okay. But we still have more things to show for animations and such, so we'll do that in a future video. One last thing before I forget. If we go to our FX layer, the way we created our animations, you'll notice in all parts, we'll have put those animations in there. Do recommend deleting it. It's not 100% necessary as there is no transitions to them. It's just Keep it nice and clean, you know? Yeah, you should be able to just upload your model as is. Should be perfectly fine, and you should be able to just build and publish and upload. Yeah, if you found this video helpful, please hit that like button. If you disliked it, why are you still watching? There's so many videos or YouTubers that do this kind of stuff better, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.